Introduction. Anger is a natural human emotion, but most of us waste precious energy getting upset over trivial or stupid things, like a delayed message, a minor mistake, or someone else's careless behavior. Stoic philosophy offers timeless wisdom on how to reclaim that energy, teaching us to respond to life with calmness, reason, and perspective. By understanding what is within our control and what is not, Stoicism shows us how to stop letting small irritations dictate our mood and actions. In this lesson, we'll explore practical Stoic techniques to reduce anger, maintain emotional balance, and develop the mental clarity to handle life's minor annoyances without losing our composure. 1. Recognize what you can control. One of the most powerful principles for achieving mental clarity, emotional stability, and personal growth is learning to recognize what you can control and what you cannot. Many people spend vast amounts of energy worrying about outcomes, other people's actions, or external circumstances, only to feel frustrated when things don't go their way. The first step toward mastery over your life is understanding that your control is limited to your own thoughts, actions, and reactions. You cannot dictate how others behave, how situations unfold, or how the world responds to your desires, but you have complete authority over your choices, attitudes, and effort. By focusing on what lies within your sphere of influence, you free yourself from unnecessary stress, disappointment, and anxiety, because you are no longer wasting energy on factors beyond your reach. This recognition is not about passivity or resignation. Rather, it is an empowering mindset that channels your energy toward meaningful action. When you consistently focus on what you can control, you develop resilience, as you no longer hinge your happiness on the unpredictability of external circumstances. For instance, in interpersonal relationships, you cannot control how someone else thinks or feels, but you can control how you communicate, how patiently you listen, and how you manage your expectations. In work or personal projects, the outcome may not always match your hopes, yet your preparation, effort, and mindset are fully within your grasp, and concentrating on these aspects increases both productivity and satisfaction. Recognizing what you can control also helps you navigate emotional turbulence. Emotions like anger, jealousy, or anxiety often arise from attachment to things outside your control. By reminding yourself that you cannot control external events, you create space to respond deliberately rather than react impulsively. This approach mirrors the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, which teaches that serenity comes not from attempting to shape the world but from shaping oneself. Furthermore, cultivating this awareness nurtures patience and strategic thinking. When you stop expending energy on uncontrollable outcomes, you can invest in the incremental steps that lead to real progress. You learn to embrace uncertainty with calmness, understanding that setbacks are often outside your influence, but your attitude, effort, and decisions are always within your power. Over time, this practice builds self-trust because you consistently rely on your own judgment and actions rather than external validation or luck. Recognizing what you can control is, therefore, both a liberating and practical skill. It reduces anxiety, enhances focus, and empowers you to live a life grounded in intention rather than frustration. The more you internalize this principle, the more you act from a place of strength, resilience, and clarity, and the less you are swayed by the chaos of the world around you. Ultimately, understanding the boundary between control and influence is a foundation for personal freedom, emotional stability, and consistent growth in every aspect of life. 2. Pause before reacting. In life, much of the stress, conflict, and regret we experience stems from reacting impulsively rather than responding thoughtfully. The ability to pause before reacting is not merely a matter of self-control. It is a practice of awareness, reflection, and intentionality. When we encounter situations that trigger strong emotions, such as anger, frustration, or fear, our immediate instinct is often to react without considering the consequences. Yet, these instinctive reactions frequently escalate conflicts, damage relationships, and leave us feeling regretful afterward. By learning to pause, even for a few seconds, we create a space between stimulus and response, allowing clarity to emerge. In that pause, we can assess the situation objectively, examine our emotions, and consider the potential impact of our actions. Stoic philosophy, for instance, emphasizes the value of self-mastery and rational reflection, teaching that external events are not inherently harmful, our judgments about them are. By internalizing this principle, we begin to recognize that reacting impulsively often serves more to satisfy momentary emotion than to solve the underlying problem. Practically, pausing before reacting can take many forms, from taking a deep breath, counting to 10, or briefly stepping away from a situation. These small, deliberate actions create mental space, helping to prevent the rush of adrenaline and emotion from dictating our behavior. Over time, this habit fosters emotional resilience and strengthens our ability to navigate challenging interactions with composure. Importantly, pausing does not mean avoiding confrontation or suppressing emotions. Rather, it is about choosing the most constructive response instead of succumbing to automatic reactions. For example, in a heated disagreement, a pause allows us to respond calmly, articulate our thoughts clearly, and avoid saying something we might later regret. In professional settings, this skill can prevent miscommunication and maintain credibility, while in personal relationships, it can preserve trust and deepen understanding. The practice also encourages self-awareness, as each pause offers an opportunity to explore why we feel a certain way and whether our emotions are proportionate to the situation. Over time, we develop a capacity to respond with thoughtfulness, empathy, and strategic insight, turning potential conflicts into opportunities for growth. Ultimately, pausing before reacting transforms our interactions and our mindset. It shifts us from being reactive participants in life to being intentional architects of our behavior, creating outcomes aligned with our values rather than our impulses. Cultivating this discipline is a continuous journey, but the benefits, greater emotional stability, healthier relationships, and enhanced decision-making are profound. By embracing the power of the pause, we gain control over our responses, reduce unnecessary suffering, and engage with the world more wisely, proving that sometimes the simplest act, pausing, can be the most powerful step toward personal mastery. 3. Reframe the situation. Life often throws situations at us that feel frustrating, unfair, or overwhelming, and our initial reactions are usually emotional: anger, disappointment, or anxiety. However, one of the most powerful tools for maintaining calm and gaining clarity is the ability to reframe the situation. Reframing does not mean denying reality or pretending problems do not exist. Rather, it is about consciously choosing to view circumstances from a different perspective that empowers you rather than diminishes. When you reframe, you shift from seeing yourself as a victim of external events to an active participant capable of responding with wisdom and intentionality. For instance, instead of feeling insulted by a colleague's harsh criticism, you can reframe it as an opportunity to strengthen your skills, learn more about your blind spots, or practice patience and humility. Similarly, setbacks in personal goals or relationships can be reframed as lessons or guidance, showing what adjustments are needed rather than evidence of personal failure. This perspective change alone can dramatically reduce unnecessary stress and emotional turmoil. Reframing also requires distancing yourself from the immediate emotional reaction to see the broader context. Asking simple questions like, how will this matter in a week, a month, or a year? Or what can I gain from this experience, can provide clarity and diminish the intensity of negative emotions. It is important to recognize that reframing is not about suppressing emotions. It is about consciously choosing how you interpret events so that your energy is directed toward constructive outcomes instead of reactive negativity. Over time, practicing this mental skill strengthens emotional resilience and increases your ability to remain composed under pressure. People who naturally reframe situations tend to navigate conflicts more effectively, adapt to change more smoothly, and maintain better mental health because they focus on what they can control, their mindset and actions, rather than what they cannot control, the behavior of others or external circumstances. In relationships, reframing can transform misunderstandings or disagreements into opportunities for empathy and deeper connection, fostering communication that is solution-oriented rather than conflict-driven. Even in seemingly trivial daily annoyances, such as traffic, long lines, or minor setbacks, reframing allows you to turn frustration into humor, patience, or gratitude, reducing stress and enhancing overall well-being. Ultimately, mastering the skill of reframing shifts your life from a reactive existence dictated by circumstances to a proactive life guided by perspective. It empowers you to see challenges as growth opportunities, criticism as guidance, and delays as chances to practice patience. The more consistently you practice reframing, the more automatic it becomes, gradually transforming your outlook from one dominated by frustration and complaint to one grounded in clarity, control, and resilience. By learning to consciously reinterpret events, you develop a mental habit that reduces unnecessary suffering and maximizes your capacity for thoughtful, intentional responses, creating a life that is not defined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to perceive and respond to it. Detach from ego. Detaching from ego is one of the most profound lessons in personal growth, yet it is often misunderstood. The ego, at its core, is a mental construct of who we think we are, our identity, our pride, our sense of importance, and our attachment to how others perceive us. While it can serve as a tool for self-preservation and motivation, it becomes a source of suffering when it dictates our reactions, clouds our judgment, and keeps us trapped in a cycle of comparison, fear, and validation seeking. Detaching from ego does not mean becoming emotionless or indifferent. It means recognizing that our self-worth is not tied to external approval, achievements, or the need to always be right. It is about observing our thoughts and behaviors without immediately identifying with them. When we act from ego, every slight, criticism, or obstacle feels personal, and every praise or success becomes a fragile reinforcement of identity. By practicing detachment, we learn to respond to life rather than react to it, cultivating a sense of inner freedom that is unaffected by external circumstances. This does not happen overnight. It requires mindfulness, self-reflection, and consistent practice. One of the most powerful methods to detach from ego is to become aware of the internal narratives that drive our behavior. We often justify our anger, jealousy, or defensiveness as natural reactions, but these emotions are frequently manifestations of ego trying to protect its fragile sense of self. By noticing these impulses without immediately acting on them, we create a space between stimulus and response, which is where true choice and freedom emerge. Another essential aspect is humility. Humility is not self-deprecation. It is the acknowledgement that we are part of a larger whole and that our perspective is inherently limited. Accepting that we do not have all the answers, that we can learn from anyone, and that our value is intrinsic rather than performative allows the ego to loosen its grip. Practices such as meditation, journaling, and Stoic reflection can reinforce this detachment by helping us observe the impermanence of situations and the fleeting nature of recognition or criticism. Additionally, detaching from ego allows us to deepen our relationships because we no longer seek validation or dominance. We listen, empathize, and engage from a place of authenticity rather than performance. Life becomes less about protecting an image and more about experiencing it fully. The ultimate reward of detaching from ego is the liberation from constant mental turbulence, the peace that arises when we are no longer chained to identity-based reactions, and the clarity to act with wisdom and compassion. In essence, detachment from ego is not the loss of self, but the discovery of a self that is resilient, free, and grounded in reality rather than illusion. By practicing this consistently, we cultivate emotional balance, mental clarity, and a deep sense of inner freedom that allows us to navigate life with grace, purpose, and authenticity. 5. Practice mindful awareness. Practicing mindful awareness is one of the most transformative habits you can cultivate for your mental, emotional, and even physical well-being, yet it is often overlooked in the rush of modern life. At its core, mindful awareness is a practice of fully paying attention to the present moment without judgment, allowing yourself to observe your thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they arise, rather than reacting automatically or being swept away by them. This simple yet profound practice can dramatically improve the quality of your life because it strengthens your ability to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Many people go through their days on autopilot, reacting to external stimuli with frustration, stress, or distraction, and as a result, they miss the richness of each moment. By practicing mindful awareness, you create a mental pause between stimulus and response, which gives you the power to choose how you act rather than being controlled by habitual patterns. For instance, when you notice irritation or anger bubbling up in response to a minor inconvenience, instead of immediately reacting, mindful awareness allows you to observe the feeling with curiosity, acknowledging its presence without labeling it as good or bad. This simple act of noticing your emotional response changes your relationship with your feelings, reducing their intensity and giving you clarity in how to act. Furthermore, mindful awareness is not limited to emotional regulation. It enhances your perception of the world around you. when you eat, walk, or even wash dishes with mindful attention. Small experiences become richer and more satisfying, and you develop a deeper appreciation for ordinary moments that are usually overlooked. Over time, this practice also strengthens focus and concentration because it trains your mind to remain present and avoid the constant pool of distractions or wandering thoughts. Neuroscientific research has shown that regular mindfulness practice can rewire the brain, improving attention, emotional regulation, and even reducing stress-related physiological responses. Importantly, cultivating mindful awareness is not about eliminating thoughts or emotions, but about becoming aware of them in a compassionate and non-judgmental way. It is about recognizing that thoughts are transient, feelings are temporary, and that your awareness is a stable observer that allows you to navigate life with greater ease. Practicing even a few minutes of mindfulness daily, through meditation, focused breathing, or simply paying close attention to your senses, can begin to create noticeable changes in your emotional resilience and overall presence. Over time, this habitual presence transforms how you experience relationships, work, and personal challenges because you are no longer fully reactive or swept into the currents of life without noticing. Instead, you cultivate a steady, calm awareness that allows you to respond with clarity, patience, and insight. In essence, practicing mindful awareness is a lifelong skill that nurtures self-understanding, emotional balance, and a deep appreciation for the present, helping you live with greater intention, fulfillment, and peace. 6. Use rational thinking. Using rational thinking is one of the most powerful tools for navigating life effectively, yet it is often overlooked in moments of stress, emotion, or haste. Rational thinking is the ability to pause, step back from immediate impulses, and examine situations objectively, analyzing facts and evidence rather than relying solely on feelings or assumptions. It involves questioning one's own biases, recognizing cognitive distortions, and separating emotions from logic. For instance, when faced with conflict, a rational thinker does not immediately react with anger or defensiveness. Instead, they consider the other person's perspective, evaluate the potential consequences of their response, and choose a course of action that aligns with long-term goals rather than short-term emotional gratification. Rational thinking also requires an understanding of cause and effect, allowing individuals to identify patterns, anticipate outcomes, and make decisions that are informed rather than reactive. It encourages a mindset of curiosity and problem-solving, where challenges are approached as opportunities to analyze, adapt, and improve rather than obstacles to be feared or avoided. Moreover, rational thinking is not cold or detached. It complements emotional intelligence by providing clarity in situations where emotions alone may cloud judgment. For example, in relationships, it helps one discern between genuine concerns and irrational fears, preventing misunderstandings that could escalate into unnecessary conflict. In professional life, rational thinking aids in setting priorities, evaluating risks, and making decisions are strategically sound, reducing the likelihood of costly mistakes caused by impulsivity. Developing rational thinking involves cultivating self-awareness, asking critical questions, and seeking evidence before drawing conclusions. It also entails a humility to accept when one's beliefs are flawed and the courage to adjust one's thinking accordingly. This practice strengthens mental resilience, as individuals learn to respond thoughtfully to challenges rather than being overwhelmed by them. Rational thinking is closely tied to self-discipline because it requires delaying immediate gratification, resisting cognitive shortcuts, and avoiding reactive behaviors that feel instinctively satisfying but are ultimately harmful. By consistently applying rational thinking, people gain greater control over their actions and outcomes, fostering a sense of empowerment and responsibility. Over time, it becomes a habit, a default mode of approaching life that allows one to navigate complexity with clarity and confidence. Ultimately, using rational thinking is about choosing reason over reaction, insight over assumption, and wisdom over impulse. It transforms the way we perceive problems, interact with others, and make choices, creating a foundation for personal growth, effective decision-making, and a calmer, more balanced approach to life. 7. Focus on virtue and character. Focusing on virtue and character is a central principle in philosophy, particularly in Stoicism, and it has profound implications for how we live, interact with others, and handle challenges. At its core, this lesson emphasizes that external circumstances, wealth, reputation, or even the opinions of others, are largely outside our control, and placing our sense of worth in them leads to constant frustration and dissatisfaction. True fulfillment, instead, comes from cultivating inner qualities that are fully within our control: integrity, courage, wisdom, patience, and humility. By consciously prioritizing virtue over fleeting pleasures or societal approval, we develop a stable foundation that allows us to navigate life's uncertainties with grace and resilience. The value of a virtuous character endures, shaping not only our own lives but also the lives of those around us, leaving a legacy of wisdom, integrity, and moral strength. 8. Accept life's imperfections. Life is inherently imperfect, and one of the most powerful lessons we can learn is to embrace this reality rather than fight it. Accepting life's imperfections means understanding that not everything will go according to plan, that people will disappoint, and that setbacks are not just possible, they are inevitable. When we resist this truth, we create unnecessary frustration, anger, and anxiety, wasting energy on things beyond our control. Instead, by acknowledging that imperfection is part of the human experience, we cultivate a mindset of resilience and adaptability. This does not mean complacency or giving up on improving ourselves or our circumstances. Rather, it is about shifting our focus from what we cannot change to what we can influence, from obsessing over outcomes to mastering our responses. Life's imperfections often carry hidden lessons, offering opportunities to grow patience, humility, and compassion. For instance, a mistake at work or a conflict in a relationship can teach us self-awareness and emotional intelligence, prompting us to approach challenges with a calmer, more reflective mindset. Similarly, when people around us fail or act in ways we do not expect, accepting their imperfections allows us to respond with understanding instead of resentment. The philosophy of accepting imperfections aligns closely with Stoic thought, which emphasizes a distinction between what is within our control and what is not. By internalizing this principle, we stop wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable and start directing our effort toward constructive action. This perspective also fosters gratitude, as it encourages us to appreciate what is present rather than lamenting what is missing or flawed. Accepting life's imperfections does not remove the pain of difficulties, but it changes our relationship with them. We begin to see challenges as natural elements of existence rather than personal failures or cosmic injustices. Over time, this approach builds emotional resilience, helping us remain composed under pressure and recover more quickly from setbacks. It also deepens our connection with others, as recognizing our own flaws makes it easier to forgive and empathize with theirs. Ultimately, embracing life's imperfections is a path to greater peace and fulfillment. It frees us from the relentless pursuit of perfection and allows us to live more fully in the present moment, savoring the small joys and learning from the inevitable hardships. By accepting the imperfect nature of life, we cultivate wisdom, patience, and profound sense of equanimity, turning life's unpredictability from a source of frustration into an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. In doing so, we not only navigate life more gracefully, but also inspire those around us to embrace their own humanity with compassion and courage. 9. Develop long-term emotional resilience. Developing long-term emotional resilience is less about avoiding stress or discomfort, and more about cultivating the inner capacity to respond to life's challenges with balance, clarity, and strength. Emotional resilience is the ability to withstand adversity, recover from setbacks, and adapt to change without being overwhelmed by negative emotions. At its core, this skill is rooted in self-awareness, discipline, and perspective. One of the most important foundations is learning to understand and regulate your emotions rather than suppressing or denying them. When faced with frustration, disappointment, or fear, a resilient person acknowledges these feelings, examines their sources, and chooses a constructive response instead of reacting impulsively. This often involves stepping back, breathing, and creating a mental pause before responding, which allows for rational decision-making and prevents emotion from dictating actions. Another key aspect of long-term emotional resilience is the cultivation of a growth-oriented mindset. Resilient individuals view setbacks not as permanent failures, but as opportunities for learning, adaptation, and personal growth. They recognize that discomfort and challenge are inevitable parts of life, and that enduring them strengthens their capacity to face future difficulties. This perspective reduces the emotional intensity of negative experiences, enabling one to maintain composure even in stressful situations. Developing emotional resilience also requires fostering strong internal and external support systems. Internally, this means building self-confidence, self-compassion, and mental fortitude, which empower you to face hardships without succumbing to self-doubt or excessive worry. Externally, it involves surrounding yourself with supportive people who encourage, challenge, and provide perspective, as social connections are a proven buffer against stress. Moreover, practicing mindfulness and reflection helps maintain long-term emotional stability. Techniques such as journaling, meditation, or simply pausing to assess your reactions can reveal recurring emotional triggers and provide insight into patterns that undermine resilience. Consistently engaging in these practices strengthens neural pathways associated with emotional regulation, making calm responses more natural over time. Physical well-being is equally important, as exercise, proper nutrition, and adequate sleep influence mood, energy, and stress tolerance. Resilient individuals recognize that emotional endurance is not purely mental. It is a holistic interplay of mind and body. Finally, long-term emotional resilience is reinforced through the deliberate practice of patience and delayed gratification. By accepting that meaningful outcomes often require time, effort, and perseverance, resilient people avoid impulsive reactions rooted in short-term discomfort. They develop the confidence to face uncertainty without being consumed by fear or anxiety, understanding that consistent effort and perspective ultimately yield stability and growth. In essence, building long-term emotional resilience is a lifelong process of self-awareness, disciplined response, continuous learning, and holistic self-care, allowing individuals to navigate life's inevitable challenges with composure, adaptability, and inner strength.